If England hadn't found a way past Norway, the headlines this morning would have been obvious. No other team has been knocked out at the quarterfinal stage of a World Cup more than the English. Maybe it would have been something even harsher. Thankfully, for England,
I guess we'll never know.
Argentina genuinely looks worse than they have for almost 6 years now, but that doesn't seem to matter because they seem to somehow come out victorious every time. Surely they can't keep getting away with it. And for all the conspiracy theorists out there, I don't think Breel Mbolo was paid to commit the worst and most ill-advised dive of all time, much like I don't think Egypt was paid to throw away a 2-0 lead. Mostly because the Argentine FA can't afford the risk of any more eyeballs on their bank accounts. That's just a joke, of course. This channel is completely satire. It was all routed through FIFA's accounts. They are headquartered in Switzerland, after all. Another joke, of course. I am done now again. Satire. Hello everyone, hope you're doing well, welcome back. A lot to talk about today, but first things first, England versus Argentina in the semi-finals of the 2026 World Cup. This is going to be a light show. Both of these countries have had to battle extremely hard for their semi-final appearances. Not one knockout match for either has been clear-cut. Now, they face each other. If you didn't know, the battles between these two countries in World Cups has bled into politics, into culture, into the zeitgeist, into everything, and they're guaranteed to be talking points that come out of them that we'll talk about for decades and centuries to come. Here's just a bit of a snapshot of the biggest moments. 1966, England beat them on the way to winning the whole thing. After the match, England coach Alf Ramsey refuses to let his team swap shirts with the Argentines and calls them animals for their roughhousing. 1986, England face Argentina fresh off the Falkland conflict. Diego Maradona produces the most iconic performance in World Cup history, scoring 2 goals that nobody will ever forget. One of them being dubbed the best World Cup goal of the 20th century. 1998, David Beckham and Diego Simeone fight all night, leading to Simeone riling him up, Beckham kicking out at him and receiving a straight red card. Argentina go through, David Beckham becomes public enemy number 1. 2026, probably a decapitation, live on television. Let's see. A lot to look forward to. Also, by the way, if you haven't, consider subscribing. We are so close to 400k and I really cannot believe it. Thanks to everyone that's followed along so far on this channel. I mean, I started this whole thing almost 6 years ago and had no idea I would get here, but here we are. Enough of that, let's talk about Miami Heat, and I'm not talking about the weather. There were plenty of people that woke up this morning to the unfortunate news that their adopted team, the dark horses of the 2026 World Cup, were rowing their way home. But what a tournament the Norwegians have had. To come this far in a World Cup after having not even appeared at major tournaments for over 2 decades, to beat the Ivory Coast, to knock out Brazil, and push England all the way to extra time. There's absolutely no doubt that Norway belong at this level. They did not look out of place at any point in this tournament. I mean, technically they did against France, but they threw that game on purpose. They didn't start 9 of their regular first team players because they had already made it into the next round. Could they have been a little bit braver in this match here against England? Maybe. They could have taken more risks at times, adopted, a more dynamic approach against England, had someone else play on the right wing. We'll get into that in a little bit. But this is just one of those defeats where the result really shouldn't overshadow the achievement. Unfortunately for them, Jude Bellingham is a different breed. Now, Norway's goal, spectacular as it was, I was a bit suspect of it because I genuinely thought that there was a foul on Harry Kane to begin with, initially at least. But after watching the replay and watching Harry Kane grab his right foot even though contact was on the left, I was less convinced. Insane goal. Definitely a cross, but insane goal nonetheless. Harry Kane was doing his best Invisible Man impression in this game. Expected a lot more from him, but he can definitely afford a day off because Jude Bellingham can pick up the slack. Quite a comforting thought for the English, I think. But before we get ahead of ourselves, we have to talk about the equalizer for England. Story time. In 2005, Chelsea and Liverpool played in the Champions League semi-final. Liverpool's Luis Garcia scored the only goal of the 2-legged tie, except for whatever reason, there is literally no good angle that definitively shows the ball crossing the line. Jose Mourinho, Chelsea's manager at the time, labeled this as a quote-unquote ghost goal. I only say this because in the lead up to England's equalizer against Norway, something something interesting happened. There is mass belief that the ball hits the overhead camera cable for the spider cam wire before dropping back into play, and England go on to score. The Norwegian players protested immediately. Under the laws of the game, if the ball hits a foreign object, let's say a beach ball, rolls onto the field as they do quite often, then game needs to stop, the referee needs to initiate a drop ball for the team that was in possession, and we go from there. Now, I didn't notice anything when watching, I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I think most people didn't, but apparently the Norwegians did, apparently a lot of other people did, but there are no definitive angles. I've watched all these different angles of this happening, and I can't say that I can see it. I'm sorry. Many people will die on the hill that they can see a slight unnatural movement. You know, this is where a lot of conspiracy theories lie, but I don't know. And just because I can't see it doesn't mean it didn't happen, by the way. I want to clarify that. FIFA's answer afterwards, at least what they reported, was that the sensor inside the ball registered no contact. They even released the sensor readings, but that hasn't stopped a lot of people from believing that this sensor reading was either wrong, makes no sense, or was just straight up doctored. And the reason for this is that we all have to remember that this is the same FIFA that claims that Croatian hair follicles are strong enough to register a spike on these same sensors. So the official position, again, if contact was made, is that this chip is sensitive enough to register hair follicles, but not a Kevlar wire. You can see why Norwegians are struggling with this one. In any case, what happened when the ball hit the floor is not up to interpretation. It's all Jude Bellingham. Jude Bellingham. Gordon gives him the ball, he drives through the heart of Norway and finishes with class. He's really been up for it for England in this tournament. He just has, especially in these knockout stages. He's come clutch. Like I said, when Harry Kane doesn't play, you would think, the initial thought would be that England are dead in the water, but when we have a guy like him doing this, and then he scores the second goal in the 3rd minute of extra time. After Morgan Rogers strikes from distance, he's the only one that reacts. And from what we've seen in this tournament, these players really need to start trying more of these speculative shots like this. The keepers clearly aren't fully used to the bounce or the movement of these balls in the air. Ask Sene Lammens in the Belgium game, for example. These guys need to gamble a little bit more, I think. But the drama didn't end there because Norway had a goal disallowed. VAR pulled it back for a two-handed Erling Haaland push on Elliot Anderson in the build-up. And, you know, this was soft. I think anyone that watches football at almost any level can agree that this was a bit of a soft call, in my opinion. Elliot Anderson is very weak over here. We know that he's stronger than that. Yes, there is contact made. Technically, it's the right decision, but it's just about consistency, you know, and this is what this entire tournament seems to be being defined by. You know, a lot of the fouls and challenges that were made in this very game, as well as in this entire tournament, have been worse than this, but play has allowed to continue. Here's the thing, this is all I'm saying. If this is a foul, but this is not a foul, I don't really know what world I'm living in. Someone, it might be me, at some point is gonna look into all the calls or the majority of the calls and no calls in this tournament and kind of take stock. And it will be interesting to see what people think. For the record, I feel like I have to make my position clear. I do not believe in conspiracy theories. I believe in bad referees. That's it. Because for balance, England had a penalty taken away. Jed Spence initiates the contact over here, and after awarding it, Clement Turpin takes it away. A good call. You have to back that whomever it was that would take this penalty, whether it be Harry Kane or Jude Bellingham to get his hat-trick, they would have scored and England would have been 3-1 up, and there would have been no doubt of them making it into the next round. If there was favoritism, then this is a marginal call. It's the type of marginal call that you could argue and would be forgotten within the next couple of days. It really is tough for Norway because you strip away every refereeing controversy or whatever you want to call it, and Norway still had a really good chance of going through. And the moment that most people will remember, the moment that will follow one man around for the rest of his career, his life, all of that came at 1-0. 2-on-1, Alexander Sørloth on the ball, and the other Norwegian in the picture here is Erling Haaland, unmarked, waiting for a square pass and a tap-in that makes it 2-0. Sørloth does not pass it. He tries to do it himself, the chance dies, and minutes later, Bellingham equalizes against the run of play. Now, I haven't been a fan of Sørloth playing on the right wing for Norway throughout this entire tournament, especially when you have guys like Nusa, like Oscar Bob on the bench. It makes no sense to me. Like, I know in the Brazil game and in some of the games in the group stages, he was opening space up for Haaland. He was doing some good off the ball runs, but just from the overall perspective, I don't think that what he adds to the game is justified enough for him to be the one starting there. And I think that Norway suffered for that. Which brings us back to the question of bravery. They got into promising positions and froze, and this continued when they were a goal down. They had no urgency about them. Now, England.
Come on, England!
A fourth semi-final appearance in their history beckons, and I'd say it's deserved. England, like I said, they were poor at times, but I think they showed great character and got over the line, and they are not perfect. But I do think they have all the tools capable of going all the way. I think Tuchel's subs throughout this entire tournament have been good for the most part and extremely impactful, which means you really can't count them out even if they do have a bad first half and first period. And so far they've even proven that they can fight not only the opposition, but themselves. Or at least, their own media. Following the match, reporters were baiting Thomas Tuchel for negative comments only to use them out of context in later interviews with Jude Bellingham. It's the English media way, they build the team up in the lead up, they hype them up, they bring up hope, they get everyone interested and excited only to profit immensely when everything comes crashing down and all the hope that they sold goes out the window. If England go on to win, the clicks will generate themselves, they don't have to work too hard. But if they lose, then all that work they've done on the build-up, all the quotes that they've gathered, they'll be able to use them as ammo against this team. And trust me, there is a lot of ammo that's going to come out if England lose against Argentina, if they aren't able to take it all the way home. Thomas Tuchel's selections, all the quotes, everything, it's going to come down really hard and really fast. Get ready for it. If it happens. It is what it is, but I will say, little do the press know that Bellingham is used to way worse in Spain. Thomas Tuchel is German, he fights back. Which brings us to the biggest fight that this English side will face in this tournament, Argentina, the reigning champions. Final score against Switzerland, Argentina 3, Switzerland 1. I'll admit I only watched the second half of this game in full. I was asleep for the first half because of course I was. It was 3 a.m. It's a miracle that I woke up in the first place for that second half. How Alexis McAllister is able to outjump everyone for Argentina's first, I will never know. From the playback, it wasn't even his first header in the previous 2 or 3 minutes prior. Pre-match, I thought Switzerland were more than capable of beating Argentina in this game. Argentina, let's call it a spade, have looked poor throughout this entire competition, nowhere near their usual selves, but they just always find a way to win. Messi carried them through the group stages. The rest of the cast seems to be stepping up right now, which is a good thing, but they are still vulnerable. Switzerland have been having a great tournament and they showed it. Like I said, I only watched the second half in full and Switzerland were the stronger side in that half. Dan Ndoye equalizes for the Swiss with a goal that was coming for a long time, and then, like Egypt, they self-implode. Breel Embolo, brother. Why? There is Sirlot's levels of throwing, and then there's this. Embolo, already on a yellow card, dives. Paredes gets the initial card, but FIFA's new rules on mistaken identity means that it was reviewed. Second yellow card, red. He goes crying down the tunnel. Now, I'm going to say something right now that might sound a little bit crazy to some, but just hear me out for a second. This might be the worst dive I have ever seen in my entire life. And I've been watching football for almost 26 years now. And it's not just the dive itself, it's the context around it and everything that followed. The quarterfinals of a World Cup. Your country is in the quarterfinals for the first time since 1954. Your team has just equalized minutes ago against the reigning champions and are on pace to knock them out. You're in the middle of the pitch, in possession. There's no advantage to be gained whatsoever by play acting over here. You're already on a yellow card and you keep rolling on the floor after Paredes gets a booking, virtually ensuring that VAR takes a much closer look at this. It just makes no sense. Like I said, I think Switzerland were on course to have a really good result for themselves. Yakin outcoached Scaloni in the second half, I think. Messi was nowhere near this game. Argentina were resorting to long balls. Even down to 10 men, Switzerland defended for roughly 50 minutes and nearly dragged it to penalties. And it took an unstoppable top corner strike from Julian Alvarez to break them. I'm glad that he's finally showed up to the World Cup. He took his time. But again, I want to rein this back in and say, let's not take anything away from Argentina, okay? They had to dig very deep when their technical ability was failing them. Their experience dragged them through. And that's the whole package. That's Argentina right there. It's why they could very well win this entire thing again, and you shouldn't really be too surprised if that happens. However, if you are an Argentina fan, I don't think you need me to spell out the obvious. They must improve. This is their script in the knockouts so far. Score early, retreat, invite pressure, go flat for like 80 minutes or so, then produce a burst of quality that takes you through to the next round. Of all the teams in the semifinals, they have struggled the most to get there and have had arguably the easiest path. They have not faced any teams ranked in the top 15 whatsoever, not even in the group stages. So let's see how this goes. Anything could happen. On to the semifinals. Unfortunately, there will be no new names on the trophies. Each of the 4 teams that are in it have won it before. And just to emphasize the fact that nothing ever happens, they are the top 4 ranked teams in the world, even prior to the competition. So much for victory for the little guys. All that I wanted was to see Virginia in a World Cup final lifting that trophy, but the football gods, they couldn't even give me that. Anyway, that's all for me today. The streams will be coming back for the semifinals. You can catch me for those. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you're having a great day. Cheers, and I will catch you in the next one.